Welcome to After the Letter, our short companion conversation following this week's reading of the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. In these conversations, one of us has just narrated the letter while the other is hearing it for the first time. Together we explore what stood out, what surprised us, and why Lewis's observations still resonate today. This week we're looking at letter 4. At first glance it seems to be about prayer, but it quickly becomes much broader. A letter about attention, assumptions, and the difference between what is real and what we imagine to be real.
So compared with the last letter, which was very, very action-oriented and very visual, this was much more reflective and about what's going on the inside. It was slow. It was more about sort of inner thinking of what was going on in the head of the patient. It was quieter.
Yeah, it's not a letter built around action. Screwtape, I think, isn't actually encouraging Wormwood to try and promote wrongdoing. He's trying to get Wormwood to just leave the patient with his own ideas and his own assumptions and his own mental pictures instead of engaging honestly with reality.
Yeah. It was this idea of just leave them to it, Wormwood. They're going to get it wrong anyway. Right now, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I think one of the ways that you could interpret this letter is that it's about humility. And not humility in the sense of thinking less of yourself, but the humility to accept that reality may be different from the version we've constructed in our minds.
That's very erudite. My experience of that word humility is different.
In this context, humility would mean that you think beyond the boundaries of your own thought process. Rather than being attached to your own ideas, literally try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, because that's the root of empathy.
This idea of having pictures in your head about people and what they need and what's right for them and what they're going through. Maybe we stop actually seeing what's really going on. You anticipate what a conversation's going to be. So in your head, you're ready for it. So somebody starts talking and then you're not really there and you're not really listening. You're almost waiting for the other person to finish so that you can kind of carry on because you're anticipating what's going to be there. Now, in the context of letter 4, Screwtape is almost saying, do you know what? That's why you don't need to do anything, Wormwood, because people are going to do that. They think that they know what they need to do, and they think that they need to know what they say, and they think that they know what they're asking for. They'll get more caught up in that than actually connecting with something outside of themselves and something bigger than themselves. They're not really going to be listening for the answer.
No, it seems fair. The way we're communicating at the moment, we're sitting, looking at each other in the eye, talking to each other. But an awful lot of the conversations that we have throughout the day are conducted virtually. And those conversations are not of the same calibre. There's a virtual space attached to those. And in that virtual space, you can populate it really with your own narratives about how the other person is feeling, because they're not sitting in front of you, showing you how they're feeling. It's harder now, really, to have a genuine conversation, because if you're not in the same room and you're not in the same space, then it's easy to talk to the narrative that's constructed within your own head than the person that you're actually communicating with.
You started reading the letters a while ago, but for example, this one, I think you came back and redid it.
Yes, I've redone a few just because by the time I'd done them all, I went back to listen to some of the earlier ones and I realised that there were things that I wanted to change. And I think I was saying last time that trying to translate the text into the voice of the period in my head was difficult. And I think maybe this is what you were experiencing when you listened just now.
Yeah.
That it's slightly impenetrable on the first listen, that the concept being espoused is not immediately obvious.
Yeah, it's like listening to a foreign language and knowing the foreign language, but you really, really have to pay attention.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed, there were more beats between the things that were being said. And so I suppose it's a sign of you maybe having better understood it this time around, because it was reflective. And to reflect, you almost need those pauses in between to let something sort of sink in.
Yep.
So that was deliberate then.
That was deliberate, yeah. There's a thing on YouTube and a thing in media in general where the silences are all chopped out and you hear it a lot. It's almost like an editing style nowadays. A modern audience, I guess, doesn't even notice it much. But in reading something like the Screwtape Letters from the 1940s, the spaces were as important as the words themselves because they gave reflection time. And because the narrative is a dramatic narrative, even though it is what it is, there's a need for having those spaces in there.
I don't know whether I've comprehended the content of the letter the way that it was meant, but it was helpful. What I was experiencing was Screwtape's almost saying, let them get distracted by what's in front of them. Let them look at the corner of the room. Let them look at the thing that's on the wall. Rather than really looking inward, rather than them really connecting with something, they think that they're connecting with something, but the thing that they're connecting to is actually something material.
Yes.
Part of what you've just said about putting those pauses back in is, what if you leave those pauses so somebody does actually have processing time to really get to grips with what is going on, rather than them going, okay, now on to the next thing, now on to the next thing, now on to the next thing.
My grandparents had a term for the television box, called it the idiot's lantern. And when the television arrived in the 1940s and early 1950s, not long after Screwtape was written, some people couldn't see it. It was just a flickering light to them. They couldn't actually focus on the scanning dot going across the screen. But other people became immediately glued to it. And I think that was the first time that people experienced the understanding of how technology can disconnect us whilst it's in the process of connecting us. People who used to sit in a room together and have a conversation or read books together or maybe listen to the radio together, which is actually a very shared experience. The television grabbed their attention and effectively damped down conversation, except to the points which were on the television. So people started communicating with each other in reference to the idiot's lantern.
Yeah.
And I think the internet works similarly.
Well, again, that seems to fit in with that whole echo chamber thing and algorithms. You only see what you're pointed to. You have to make a conscious effort to look beyond that, otherwise you'll just get more of what you were looking at.
Yep, that's right. And as a result, several generations have grown up that find it actually much more difficult to pay attention to other people in a genuine way. So they literally have lost the ability. Now that's not to say that people can't learn how to do that, but that culture of learning starts with actually doing what we're doing, which is sitting around the kitchen table having a conversation about something that's important and actually finding out what the other person thinks.
We do talk every day.
We've made a habit of it since 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
And we've gotten better at it. And it's not that we didn't talk before, but I think we were watching The Idiot's Lantern quite a lot. I'm quite glad that stopped.
Yeah, I agree. Outside of this space, we have talked about how people process at different rates and how thoughts get lost because we don't allow for that pregnant pause. We don't give the space for them to finish their thought and share it. And so some voices are always shut down. Some really great ideas get shut down. They're not ready to hear it. They think that they know what's coming, so they keep jumping in. And I continue to do that with you, for example. But I've become much more conscious of it over time. I think you're done, but you're not done. And so I jump in, and then I realise I'm jumping in, and then I apologise.
Yeah, that's fine. It's surprising how many people do it. And I invite it as well because it's hard to tell listening to this, but sometimes I'll leave very long spaces between words.
Notice I'm being quiet here. I don't think he's done, folks. What we're going to carry forward. The biggest thing for me is that paying attention is a form of respect.
Well, perhaps genuine listening always begins with recognising that I may not yet be seeing clearly.
Wow, what a beautiful way of putting it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of After the Letter. If you haven't yet listened to Letter 4 itself, you'll find it in our main The Screwtape Letters playlist. Next Sunday, we'll continue with Letter 5, followed later in the week by another conversation as we explore the themes together. Until then, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Where in your own life have you noticed the difference between assumptions and reality?